Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. I do hope you're having a good day. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 76. Today, I was privileged enough to have Mickael N'Dour on the podcast today. He is he is a director, writer, producer, actor. He is a gentleman who is looking to go places. He's got a plan and I'm sure he will execute it. So please sit back, enjoy the podcast today. Very good one. Got to say, I'm very lucky to be speaking to this guy. Look forward to having a podcast with him again in the future. And see how things go. But anyway, sit back, enjoy the podcast, and have a great day. Peace. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. This is episode 76, where I have the immense pleasure to have Mickael N'Dour here today. Thankfully I got the name right. He is a director, writer, actor, producer, to name a few of his skills. Hey, Mickael, how are you today, sir?
I am well, thank you. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
No.
It's an absolute pleasure. I hope my sizzling French accent won't be too hard to understand.
Not like you're doing well with me. You're doing well.
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Yes. I have to ask. What made you come over to the United Kingdom? You were over in France and you came over here. What brought you over here?
Good question. So I was at the time living in Marseille, and I've been in love with film since I was 8 years old. It's a love affair that started with me going to the cinema and then realizing that that's all I wanted to do. Long story short, there's a point in which I realized that I needed to learn English in order to be able to understand my favorite films like The Godfather or even Star Wars at the time, or all of these things. And somehow they were all dubbed in French. And so a friend of mine who was going at university at the time told me that if I wanted to get the real experience of these films, I needed to learn the language. So it was two-way. Either I was going to take classes, which my personality is not that kind of personality. So I decided to immerse myself and then move to the UK.
That must have been, how can I say it? Must have been an interesting culture switch right there. I'm not going to say shock, but yeah, it must have been a very interesting change for you. Marseille going, this is nice, to like London.
Well, look, I think it's one of the blessings of moving to a country in which you don't speak the language is that the culture shock doesn't happen instantly. It takes a while. It takes about 2 or 3 years until you start to get the basics of the language. One of the wonderful things about also being a black man in those situations is that there is no racism for a short period of time.
That's blissful ignorance.
It's exactly that. Like, I was like, this is a wonderful country. There's no racism. There don't seem to be any problem with the fact that I'm black. I was like, this is great. What a choice. I think it's slow. It started to appear very slowly when you start to get the nuances of a new language and you start to see, it's almost like one of these things where 3 years later you're like, holy shit, that was racist.
No, I trust me. Like, even if you got the firm grasp of the language, there are some tricky people out in the UK. I'm a born and bred Brit, and it's like I'm sitting there like a few months later, wait a second. That person did not like me. Hey,
what did you? Oh yeah. So many things. Again, like I said, blissful ignorance. You have things that are cultural, that are completely different, like the way to work. I think in France, we are very direct when it comes to our working relationship or even our communication. So if you are displeased with something, and probably this is why French people have such a bad reputation around the world as being rude.
No, 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 no.
No, no, no.
No, 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 no. No.
I think it's mainly because we tend to speak our mind, and we tend to say what it is. So if the work is not good, so here's a difference. If we work together and there's someone presenting work to me and it's not good work, as a Frenchman, I would be, this is not good, you should do it again. And that's it. There's no, you know, and what I learned in England is that you don't say that. You say, oh, it's interesting. Have you tried a different approach? which is not the way I functioned for the first 10 years of my life in the UK.
Well, welcome to the world of tact and diplomacy. It serves you well in some situations.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've learned. I mean, I've lost a few friends between not realizing that I was coming out as a bit brash and difficult. But I learned. You know, I think there's a bit of everything. I think sometimes you can be too diplomatic, and sometimes you can be too direct. I think it's good to have a middle ground, I guess.
So when you came over to the UK, was it just, did you come to London only, or did you sort of venture out further afield?
I am someone who usually function with plans. So the plan was to come, spend I think the plan was to spend 3 years learning English, then 2 more years to do a few plays in English and master Shakespeare.
Oh, you're going to master Shakespeare into it. Good luck with that.
and then the end of the plan was to go to the States, go to Los Angeles. So obviously, you know, they always say, if you want to make God laugh, make plans. And that's exactly what happened. I got here and I guess, you know, I think it's one of those things. I did learn English as fast as I thought I would, but I guess there's always the thing you don't know, which is the fact that you never get to lose your accent, and there's certain things that are easier for some people than others. I guess, you know, for me, it was not my ideal. In my ideals of ideals, I would have spoken English like an Englishman within 5 years, but that's I've been at it for 20 years, and it's just not happening.
No, look, my friend, look, with the sort of roadmap of your plan, to come over here, learn English, great. Then to get some acting work, great. Then to master Shakespeare in 2 years. Good luck with that.
Good luck, exactly. That's I guess it's the naivety of youth, right?
Hey, look, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But then to go to America. Okay, now this is the thing. I've noticed, like, many a Brit has made that trip over to the States, and yes. And if you kind of look at there's 2 people that stand out in the sort of classic forms of having an American accent at all times.
Right. Yes.
Like, if you listen to Henry Cavill when he does like his American accent, like you hear his accent, like, be there for a second, then
yes,
or you could go with the Sean Connery school of accents, like. Say, how are you doing?
How are you doing?
Well, there you go. Doesn't matter what, Russian captain, how are you doing? American, how are you doing? Ireland, how are you doing? Scotland.
How are you doing?
Always
I mean, it's an interesting one, because I mean, obviously there's one that really surprised me was Idris Elba, which for years I thought was American. For years. for years I thought I watched The Wire. I was like, yeah, this American actor is amazing. Only to find out that he's the cockneyest actor you could come across. It's crazy. So yeah, America. That's later for the conversation, but I guess yeah.
This is the thing. Like, okay, as I said, yeah, you're a writer, director, producer.
Yeah.
Like, how on earth did you get sort of started along that line? Because it's a realm of a lot of short films from what I've read. My research.
So I think it's always I guess the way I would put it is those things were never planned. So every single hyphenate that you add to your resume for me was mostly a necessity. So at first, all I wanted to do was to act. I wanted to act in films, and I wanted to be a performer, which is how I started as a child. I was in theater very early on, and then I started writing my plays because that's what you do. And it was a school thing, so it was amateur, and I mean, no big deal. But when I got here, what tends to happen is that because of lack of opportunity, you find yourself having to create the environment you want to work in. And that's something that I guess I was blessed with because my father is and has always been an entrepreneur. So it's this mentality that is very African, which is that if you want something and people are not willing to give it to you, then you will find a way to provide it for yourself. So I guess for me it was starting out as an actor and then having very, very few opportunities. And so very quickly I realized that if I was going to get anything, I would have to write for myself, and I would have to direct for myself, and I would have to create basically projects where I would be center frame and I would tell the stories that I wanted to tell. So as a self-taught person, when I first got to London, I would guess it was a few years of floating and having fun. I was 23, 24. So I learned the language, and I learned the people, I learned the culture, and I wasn't very, how can I put it, concentrated on my task. I wasn't a very focused young man. I did have this dream, but it was it was a dream. It was not a goal. And so very slowly, I got to hang out with people that were in the business. And sorry, I'm gonna clear my throat because of this virus. It's
okay.
this virus.
I was going to say, yeah, you're okay. It's just me and you listen to this. But when you sort of say, I'm going to clear my throat because of this virus.
You backed away from the screen for a second.
Oh no, yeah, but you know what I mean. From what I know, fingers crossed it go across electronics. But if it does,
no. I'll find you, man.
I'll find you.
Yeah, sorry. So it's this idea that I don't know. Maybe you can relate to this or not. Oh, my microphone. Oh. Okay, microphone accident. I should not have.
Oh no! You know what? It happens to the best of us.
What did I do? Okay. What? There is. Let me put this back. This is interesting. Okay, I see what I did. I kicked it. So you're gonna have to edit this out. Can you edit this out?
No, I'll be leaving it in. I'll be. Put it this way, like when I first started out doing podcasting,
right? Yeah.
Okay, one of my first interviews, I died by the name of Liam. I mean, oh my Lord! Okay, I was using Skype at the time over OBS, and this is the thing. It can be some of the most fiddliest thing in the world because sometimes it'll work, and sometimes it won't. And this time it was like no, and I had it working 10 minutes beforehand perfectly. And it just, at the time, it went, no, I'm not working for you at all. I'm sitting there going,
Is that
like going, oh God, it was going so wrong. Like, luckily, he has done podcasts before and he,
right?
as a host,
Yeah, yeah.
he recorded it all and sent it over to me. But yeah, let's just say I didn't cover myself in glory at the time.
Well,
Just,
it was your first podcast. Come on.
yeah, like
Yeah.
learning on the
Yeah.
job. Like, yeah.
So anyway, that's sorted. I think the mic will stay where it is now. So where was I? What was I saying?
It
Lost my train
wasn't
of thought.
like it was a dream, but not.
Yeah, exactly. Dream, not a goal.
Yeah.
And I guess the idea is like every young man. So if I backtrack a little bit, I have this theory about being young and black and coming from a place of, I guess, fewer opportunities when you grow up. And it's this idea that, I mean, we all talk about it. It's some people call it arrested development. And it's this idea that when, the minute you start to get your independence, your money and your thing, you kind of like get to live the things that you couldn't when you were younger. So for example, buying sneakers and having your financial independence that allows you to just have fun, go to a theme park, do all the things that you would be dreaming of doing when you were younger, but you didn't have access to because I guess, the financial mobility of your family was not necessarily where your if you had white counterparts or maybe middle-class counterparts. And for me, it was mostly that. It was that for the first time in my life, I was not at school, I was not at home. I had my money, I was in a new city. There was everything, clubs. I don't know. So you've been in London for a long time, right? So you how old are you? You around the same age as me?
How old are you?
42.
42? Yeah, just a
Yeah.
little bit older.
Okay.
Yeah, look, this is the thing. I would say this about like your situation compared to like when like especially if you've come from a different country.
Yeah.
London, like same thing I would imagine with New York or LA and stuff like this. And it's
Absolutely.
like when you're coming from the outside in, is such a vast sort of, it can be a vast playground where you can just sort of get lost in it for a while.
Absolutely.
And look, I say this as a person who's born and raised in this city.
Yeah.
You can get lost in it a while just being a resident of it when you get into that sort of new tier of having new experiences and everything like that. It's very hard to find, like, it's not hard, I would say it's very rare to find people which are like, when they, from the get-go, they're like, I've got my shit together, I'm highly focused.
That's right.
And like with that, it's a case of, I can understand why you may have got distracted because look, like if you came over in your 20s, like back then, London had quite a vibrant clubbing scene. Not so much now, but it did. Like you could.
Yeah, it did. It really did. It really did. And that's exactly it. I don't know if you remember, but there were things like Funkin' Pussy at the African Center in Covent Garden, which at the time I used to breakdance.
Okay, I think I went once, but that might have been a blurry haze. I won't go.
Yeah, pretty much. So there was that. There was 100% Dynamite in Angel. There were Madame Jojo, where I was a regular actual paid performer. For years. I was a fusion jazz dancer for many years, and that's basically how. In a flash, basically 3 years like went by, and I didn't realize they did because everything was fast, and I was at the time riding. I was riding a motorbike everywhere, so I was like this cool cat that, like this French cool cat on his motorbike, just whizzing around the place with an attitude of basically no care and just the fun. a fun time. And I guess there's a point in which you start to realize that people tend to move on, you know. People start to get serious about their career. People start to get into serious relationships, have kids, all of these things. And I guess that's at that point where I started to get a bit more serious about films
Mm.
and decided that I wanted to actually have a career. And also it's the thing about like when you learn a new language, you 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 revert back to um, you revert a little bit, like your progress is halted, so you have to relearn everything. You're a child effectively.
Mm.
You speak like a child. I mean, I remember I remembered spending time with my friend and her kid who was English, and I had been here for a year, and her kid kept on correcting me whenever I spoke English. Like, so you had this like 6-year-old child, and whenever I would say something, she would just completely correct me. Like one of the funniest one was, um, so when you're a foreigner and you come, there's things that you hear and that you pick up, and you don't really know where they come from, but you say them anyway.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the tick that I picked was saying "in it" all the time.
Oh, no. In it. Yeah, right.
In it,
In
in
it.
it. So, and I remember once I was saying something and I did say in it, and then the kid Tamsin, she was called, looked at me and she was like, "Isn't it?"
Oh, yeah.
I was like, "You, how, how very dare you?"
Like, yeah, no, she's just getting her training in. It's like,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly,
just like,
exactly.
isn't it?
Which you know what, to her credit, I never said in it after that, because I guess maybe I did not know even then that in it was isn't it. um, but it was funny. So anyway, when you get to a point where you, I think you, I wouldn't say you master the language, but you become comfortable with the language,
Mm.
then you start thinking about things like, you know, expressing yourself in that language. And obviously the point was to learn English so I could act in English. So I started looking for parts, and obviously people tend to see your profile and they see like a strapping black man. At the time I was fairly muscular, so I could pass on screen, but as soon as we turn up to an audition, um, I would say hello and they'd be like, "Oh, you French?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." And they'd be like, "Oh, sorry, we're looking for someone with an English accent." And it was not even that, it was that even in that, so I was already restricted by my accent, but then the roles I was going for were very restrictive because he was like thug or gangster
Mm.
or very stereotypical role already. So there was basically like a very, very finite space for us. But on top of that, like it was even more finite for me because my accent was the thing that would basically shut the door like immediately.
Yeah. No,
So
no.
it's so it was bad enough. So with that in mind, like I said, the way I was raised and the values that my father passed on to me was that I was like, okay, well, if nobody's gonna give it to me, then I'm gonna make it for myself. So I started writing, getting teams together, and making my short films
Mm.
with friends or people that I managed to convince into starting to work with me. And I think like I also have to credit the internet, right? So very early on, most of my cinematic education, I got it from forums and blogs and videos on the internet. I remember one very particular video that really definitely changed my life was an interview with Robert Rodriguez. So he's like the director of Desperado, a very good friend of Tarantino. He's the one that did Sin City and all of these films.
Mm-hmm.
And then in one interview, he was saying that you shouldn't wait for people to give you the title of director or filmmaker or whatever. You decide. the day you see yourself as a director or as a filmmaker, you are. You don't have to have like a degree, or you don't have to make a film, or you don't have to do anything. You just have to decide that that's what you are and then act accordingly.
Mm.
And I took that to heart. From a day to another, I was like, I am a filmmaker and I'm going to make films. And so that tends to, for someone like me, that was like all I needed to get started. So again, internet, you Google anything and then there's something and you can learn about it. So I have a background as an engineer, as an electrical engineer. So I remember going on a few forums and then trying to learn about photography, because that's the key to filmmaking. And there was this blog where there was this group of guys that were trying to come up with a way to create a black chamber to be able to record video streams that look like film. So at the time, to get like a camera with interchangeable lens was impossible. It was extremely expensive.
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
Right. So at the time, you had these like camcorders with a single lens. So the lens was basically attached, and basically you get everything in focus.
Yeah.
It's like,
because what year was this? Because
so we're going all the way back to 2006.
okay,
Around that time, yeah. So 2006, 2000, and around 2006 actually. And around that time, you didn't have like the DSLRs that we have now, which is a phenomenal advance in technology. But at the time, we only had access to these clunky cameras that where you could not change the lens. And I remember at the time I had one dream camera, and it was a Canon, I can't remember the name exactly, XLR something, where there was like one big lens that you could remove and change. And so for us, that was like the dream camera. That was like a mini DV, but it was far too expensive. So we had to find alternatives. And for me, it was a definite thing where I wanted to use, I always identified the depth of field as the thing I wanted to have in my film. And depth of field, for those that don't know, is basically where you have the ability to have one subject in focus and then the background being blurred. Okay, and that gives you this thing that you don't get necessarily with like a video camera like the one we use now, where everything is just in focus.
Yeah. Like this is the thing, when you say depth of field, like when it's a picture, they go the bokeh and stuff like that.
That's correct. That's exactly that. Bokeh is the thing that is identified with depth of field.
Yeah, no, because when you said like the DSLR cameras today,
Yeah,
there's been a whole, like this year has been a bit of a mad one for the sort of cameras coming out.
absolutely. It's insane.
Yeah, R5, the new Sony DSLR camera. Is it the Sony 7S?
A7S3.
Yes.
Yeah. So the A7S3 is, that's those cameras are the equivalent of what we used to use professionally. 15 years ago.
Yeah. And people like, this is the thing. People like, some people are kicking up a stink about the cameras they've got, like, which have just come out, and you're like going, are you aware of what you've got
Do
there?
you know how far? Yeah, it's like, do you know how far we've come with this?
Oh yeah, it's like it makes things so much easier.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like this is the thing. Like sort of going off point. Like a friend of mine, like one of my best mates, he did a short film.
Yes.
About I'm gonna say 3-4 years ago, maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
It takes a bit of time to get out there.
Of course.
Yeah, but the equipment they were using for it was just like, okay. And I couldn't go into absolute detail. You need to speak to him. But it was like, he had to spend out still some serious cash for that to get a decent sort of camera rig. And when you kind of look at for 3,500-4,000 pounds, you can get a damn, like not even an okay camera, a damn damn good camera system.
Yeah,
It's
yes, of
all,
course.
it's like okay. And when you're talking about like dynamic range, some of them are going like
Yeah, 15 to, like we go we are now at 15 to 20 stops. It's insane. It's insane.
like so like this is the thing. You're so you're working with like technology, which okay by today's standard is just like you might as well be like have a slate and just carving into rock. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, to be honest, that's pretty much what it was, and it was even worse because at the time, to get the shots that we can get now with like a DSLR that would cost you £1,000,
Mm.
um, at the time we had to build an entire new um, prototype. So we had this thread on the blog where we built something called like a lens converter, and so we built that from scratch with a bunch of guys, some in Mexico, some in Russia, like all of us have mostly geeks and people that dabble with technology, right? And so we had this thread, and the idea was simple. It was to take the video cameras of the time, which again, like I said, we're only filming through one lens and get everything in focus, and get that camera to film inside a black box where there was a spinning ground glass where the image was projected. So in front of that box, we could change the lenses.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we basically came up with this whole thing together. So some guy came well started the I joined in the thread sometime at the beginning, but it was already there. They already had the concept of a black box where you would film inside with the camera. And then, so my contribution to the whole thing was how to stabilize it, because at the time you had to use. So it, this is way back when, where we still had Discmans,
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
right?
Oh
Right. So you would take apart a Discman and you would take the motor and you would use one of these CDs. So the blank CD that was on top of the CD pile, which was the clear glass CD, and then you would use sanding paper, very fine sanding paper, to make it
okay.
opaque enough that when it was spinning on the motor and you project an image on it, it would be like see-through screen. It was a very, very clever concept. And so we all basically built our own little box, and it was this whole crazy thing, to the point that we started to get like spectacular images that literally looked like we were filming on 16 mil. And so there was a little bit of grain, which is something that we all love to a certain extent when we shoot. And also we could actually like tamper with the image and have like things that would come in and out of focus and have a depth of field and have a texture to the image that you could just not get with cameras at the time. And so we developed this thread all the way, and then a very clever German company basically uh, took the entire thread, patented it, and then created a product that
Oh,
they sold. Which was great, which was great because they created a prototype. They basically perfected our very amateurish thing, and then in the end, it came to one thing. So a new company that was a little bit similar, that I think followed the same thread but developed a different type of product in America, um, called Red Rock Micro, came out with something called the M1, which was like the box that we created but professionally made. So you could have interchangeable lenses
yeah.
and the whole concept. So you could just connect your camera, which at the time was a Sony Z1U, um, and then you would stick your camera at the back of it, and then um, and then you'll be able to to shoot exactly like a professional filmmaker. So with really good interchangeable lenses, etc., etc. And so we did that. Me and my friend Aaron went to America I think it was 2007, possibly end of 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
And we literally went all the way to New Jersey, uh, in some warehouse. Now you have to imagine this thing. So
Well,
you've got
don't
this.
go into Jersey, my friend.
Oh my God! Like he was. Look, I thought again. Sometimes you're so naive that you do things and you stumble into like incredible situation because you were not planning to fail or succeed. You just had a very simple idea.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight now, knowing what I know, maybe we would have been a little bit more cautious. But just imagine, so you have this like mixed race British guy, like his father's Jamaican and his mother's Jewish. And so we find ourselves in New York. Me, this Frenchman, I'm a few years older than him.
Yeah.
And so at the time, we just did not trust the customs, and we did not trust spending so much money, which at the time was about $2,000 for this particular product. We didn't want to pay $2,000 to a company where we didn't see anyone or knew anything. Again, this is way back when things were not as, secure as today. So we thought, okay, well, it was cheaper for us to fly to the States because it was a 200-pound flight. And the pound was really strong. Again, many things that are completely different. At the time, £2, £2 was $1 was a pound was $2.
Yeah.
So we of course we were loaded when we got there. So we got there, flew all the way to New York. Aaron had the luck to have his godmother had an apartment in Brooklyn, and as luck would have it again, she was someone that would travel around the world, like I guess 8 months in the year. So when we got to New York, we had this amazing apartment in Brooklyn, just to ourselves. So we get to Brooklyn, and then we had identified this company in New Jersey. And so we set out to go to New Jersey. So we took a Greyhound, not a taxi, not a car. We jumped on the Greyhound. And this is all my doing. Like Aaron was just following. I sometimes I can be a little bit I don't know, carefree or careless. I don't know. So
let's go with focused.
It's focused. And so
focused. There you go.
Exactly. So we found ourselves in the middle of New Jersey, a bunch of warehouses, people looking at us like complete lunatics. So there's again 2 black guys in an area where I don't know that they've ever seen and America is very segregated. There's places where you meant to see black people and places when you're not. And America is also, people on foot are suspicious. If you're on foot in an area where there's just cars, and it's like, we don't have this type of areas here. So we walk all the way to this like unit, and then we knock on the door, and then, hi, the guy's called Toby. It's like, hi, Toby, I'm Mickael. We spoke on email, like we've exchanged email like in the last few weeks, and here we are. We're here to buy the thing, and the guy's, it's like, what the actual fuck? And you're like, so do you guys want it now? And we're like, yeah, we come to pick it up. So he's like, okay. He goes get the credit card machine. We pay. He gets us this massive box, and then off we go. And so we walk out of this thing with a big ass box like this, middle of nowhere. Our bus is 10 minutes. Like the last Greyhound that's gonna pass at the bus stop is 10 minutes away in 10 minutes. And we have this giant box. So we're running we're running through the thing and,
That's not good.
and
Like,
running with a box again. Two black guys running with a box in the middle of nowhere,
oh no.
and there's 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 a police car that literally like drives exactly on our side like this, right?
Look
And
at
the
me. Like,
and the guys and we running, but we have like smiles on our face, and we're looking around and just trying to get to the thing. And the policeman opens the window is like, what's going on? And we're still running. It's like, we have to catch the bus. We are going to catch the bus. And it's like, stop. And so we stop for a second, and he stops the car. He gets out. One of the cops gets out, and he's like, what's going on here? I was like, oh. And then Aaron takes over, and of course he's got the British accent, and he's like, oh, we're just going to get our bus back, and it's a few minutes away, and we're late, and if we miss it, then that's the last bus, and we can't get back to Brooklyn. And then the cop looks at us like, okay, just step at the back of the car. And then we don't even think. we don't even. This is the craziest part. We don't even protest. We literally just get in the back of the squad car, not knowing whether we were getting arrested or whether we're getting, in our head, we were getting a ride. And that's what we got. We got a ride to the station. And then caught our bus like 1 minute. So again, from the bus point of view, there's a police car that stops right in front of the bus. Two black guys with a box coming out of the police car, stepping onto the Greyhound.
No, I like the way you were just like going. Yeah, like I like the way you like going. Oh yeah, we're in New Jersey in like some warehouse district, running with like two of you running with a big ass box down the street. I'm thinking, what? And then like
Yep.
a police car comes alongside you, and it's like, yeah, we're both smiling. I was like, this does not look well for you. Like,
No, it really, no, honestly, if I was in the mindset that I am in now, my reaction would have been different. But at the time, we were so into our dream of like filmmakers
yeah.
and guerrilla filmmakers. And yeah, we're doing it, and we running this shit. That we didn't realize that was the thing. So we didn't get arrested. We got on the bus. It was a good story for us. We bought that thing. We brought it back to London.
Yeah.
And I think within a week, we made our first short film, which was called Christmas Bonus. And that short film took us to a lot of really good places. So we won a few festivals, like short film independent festivals. At the time, we won the best short film at the London Independent Film Festival. And at the time, we our short film beat a short film where there was Benedict Cumberbatch playing twins, that was produced for £30,000 by the BBC.
Oh my Lord.
When our short film cost us 500 quid. And the short film was, I mean, people can see it online. It's called Christmas Bonus. And at the time we had Samuel Anderson, which is who was at the time in the History Boys and a few other places. And like funny story, Samuel Anderson and I used to breakdance together. So that's how we knew each other. we knew each other from the dance floor, and so he agreed to be in that short film for us. And that short film won us a few things, but was also the catalyst for us moving on to bigger and better things, because the idea is that if you make a short film, the plan is to win a bunch of festivals, and that gives you exposure, and that exposure is supposed to give you opportunities. So in 2020, it's no secret for anyone that there isn't there's not many opportunities for Black creatives, especially in the film industry. So at the time, after winning this, the phone did not ring. After winning Best Short Film at the London Independent Film Festival, beating films that were made for much more money with much more resources. Again, at the time, Benedict Cumberbatch was not a big deal, but he was a big deal at the BBC.
Yeah.
So he was like a very well employed actor. And I remember shaking his hand and feeling very superior. Because I'm an idiot. Because we were like two cocky little men that wanted to show the world that we were much better than they thought we were. But that silly moment apart, after this, we didn't get I guess, the opportunities we thought we would get by making a winning short film. So we were a little bit disillusioned. But that doesn't tend to last very long with me. So I guess in the preceding month, we had very quickly accumulated about 40 grand worth of equipment through savings and committing to work. And so we started a company, so a video production company where we did commercial videos and adverts and all kinds of things. So we were set up in Bethnal Green. Again, two young black men just trying to make it into a very complicated world of in the media. And so, sitting in our little thing, we did our work. So we worked for Southwark Council and a bunch of other companies to basically produce like high-end video, because we understood very early on that there was a market for video content on the internet, and again at the time it was not widespread. Now you go onto every website, there's all kinds of videos. But at the time, it wasn't the case. It was mostly photos and things. So we started doing like internal training videos for big companies. We started to do promotional videos for small companies in the north of England. We started to work for councils to make again internal or external videos. We did one video for a London cleanup campaign, for example. Where there was a few. Oh, Jessica Ennis was in one of our campaigns
Nice.
when they were doing the London cleanup. So it was really nice, but again, this is commercial work, so it's kind of like it's not very creative. So it's a little bit soul crushing. It's quite lucrative. It was very lucrative for us because we made good money doing that. But for me, it was never the dream. The dream was to make films.
Yeah.
So I decided one winter to start making a feature film independently, with like absolutely no budget, just with the equipment that we had. And so basically the idea was to make a film that would have things that we had access to. So in that film, which turned out to be Highlight, my first feature film, it was me as the lead actor. It was my girlfriend was in it at the time, my flat, my car, my neighborhood. I used to live. I had bought a flat in near Broadway Market. So the whole film, like three quarters of the film, I shot literally like around Broadway Market. And so yeah, we shot this film over the course of 6 months with friends and family and all kinds of things, and maybe spent £5,000 making it. And all the way along, even Aaron, which was like my biggest supporter, kept on telling me, to make a feature film, you need to be a big company. And I kept on saying to him, no, the technology now allows us to do this. We can record unlimited video. Oh, yeah. And that was another thing that we did when we went to America, because me being a technology nerd, I'm always on point with technology. So I make a point of knowing what's new, what's new and advanced in the world of video and things. So I knew the latest computers, I knew the latest technologies, I knew everything that I needed to know.
Mm.
And I identified something very early on, was that at the time, the reason it was so difficult to make feature film was that everything was shot on tape. And so mini DV was very low quality and it was interlaced and all of these like problematic where, even to transfer your media, I don't know if you remember or if you ever used it, but if you shot an hour, it was an hour of transcoding.
Yeah.
So not a very fun process to do anything. So what I did at the time is that there was this amazing Panasonic camera that came out. And when it came out with the first flash cards.
Okay.
And at the time, they were called the P2 cards. And they were cards that were recording 64 gigabytes of high definition quality footage, which for me was the most logical thing. I literally said to whoever wanted to hear it at the time that it was only a matter of time before everybody turned to hard drives to store footage. And people were like, now tapes are here to stay. And at the time I used to have a part-time job at the mill. So that was a post-production facility.
Yeah.
And of course everything was through tape, so these like high definition tape, blah 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 blah, and they had this like called MCR, which is a big VCRs and recording devices where everything is done on tape. So even when you deliver an advert, it was on a high-end tape.
Mm.
And I was convinced that was not. For me, the future was digital. So I bought this camera, and it was a massive punt. It was expensive, but for me it was logical. So we shot our entire first feature film on digital, and I think we were the first one in London. Independently, we were the first one. First of all, we were the first one to buy it in the UK. Like nobody else had that technology. But again, that story is only for us because nobody cared what we did, really.
Yeah.
So we made this feature film incredibly over the course of 6 months. We shot hours and hours of footage. And then again, Aaron was like, it's impossible. We don't have the technology to edit this. So I showed it. I made a first cut, like a rough cut of the film on a very powerful Mac, like a Mac Pro, and I showed it to him, and then he became convinced, and so we cut our film, and we made a very good first feature film for less than £5,000. And then my ambition didn't stop there. So I thought the film was good enough to go to Cannes. So I sent it to the Cannes Film Festival. This is the thing. Sometimes when you're naive and you don't have the internal voices of the cynical internal voices, you just do whatever you dream. And I didn't have any filter then. I don't think I still don't have many, but I'm a bit more cautious. So I just sent it at the Cannes Film Festival. And I remember hoping to be in the competition. That's crazy, but we didn't get into the competition, which was for me very disappointing. But we got into the film market, and I was like, well, I guess, fine, I guess, I'll take that. Even if I didn't get what I wanted, I take that. It turns out that there was 6,000 films competing for slots in the film market, and in the film market is only 60 slots, and we got one of them with our independently made feature film. Now, craziest thing about this was that being in Cannes, so our film was not in competition, but it was in the market, so we still went to Cannes, tried to get someone interested in buying our film. And one surprising thing, we were one of 3 British productions in Cannes.
Yeah, that's great.
but we were not taken seriously.
Why?
Well, the take a wild guess. I mean,
I not not this is like,
it was a simple thing. It was we were two black kids. We didn't have any legitimacy. Um, the fact that we made the feature film didn't seem to matter at all.
mm,
So we were just there, just trying to get people um, to buy the rights of our film or to get a distribution deal or something. You know, we were trying to do to run the business like everybody was, trying to even get some money for our next film if that was available. And so Cannes was an abject failure in that sense. It was a great experience because it was something that I always had dreamed of doing, and one of my earliest dream and goals was to get one of my films projected on a screen at the Cannes Film Festival, and that happened. And again, this was the same year as Brad Pitt and Quentin Tarantino were showing *Inglourious Bastard*.
hey,
So that was dope. Like we were in the same places. I remember I shared an elevator with Lars von Trier. We had a quick conversation. It was extraordinary for me. But we came back broke. We spent all our money there. We felt like we didn't get any contact. A lot of people were like, oh, you British, we British too. We'll get back to you when we're in London. And for us, it was kind of like a way to like fob us off, you know, to just like, okay, just go away, you amateurs, you know. And so that was a disheartening moment. So coming back to London, um, we felt a bit deflated,
mm,
and then Michael Jackson died. I don't know if that's relevant to the story, but
hey.
to me, for me, it is.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And like this is the thing. Like
Yeah,
I hear you. And like the one thing I would say is that like basically doing a film production
yeah,
like by yourself independently over a 6 month period, doing it like locally in your area, like basically your house and everything like that, like in like taking a punt on technology which wasn't proven to be a thing yet, like your business partner looking at you and going no 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 no, but still pushing forward, like getting the film done, doing a rough like coming with a rough cut, then that got your like partner, your business partner on board to actually go through, push it through to get that final cut for all under £5,000, and then to go all, like 10, like some people go to have the audacity to put it forward to Cannes. Are you mad? No,
yeah.
but like what I simply say is like, you know what? When some people think, oh yeah, that's crazy, that'll never work, it's a case of you don't know until you try. If you
That's
say
right.
if you say no for some, like if you say no for the other person, it's like before you've actually done it,
Right.
that no comes very easily. But
Yes.
yeah, but then like you know what I mean, when you're in the room, okay, you manage to get there. Obviously, like unfortunately you didn't get into that main competition, but you got one of the 60 slots out of 6,000 like potential films to like be distributed. That's a
Yeah.
hell of an achievement. And look, I would say yeah, there was a little bit of naivety on your part with regard
Of
to
course.
in
Of
that
course.
room with all those guys, like you're talking like yeah. I like my sort of job, like I sell and stuff like this, and building a
Yeah.
relationship and rapport with people. And I imagine the film industry is a little bit more incestuous with
Oh yeah,
regard to
completely.
that.
That is the right word. I think it's one of those things where it's who you know.
Mm,
Okay,
but
it's a sad thing, but it's who you know. So if you know someone in the industry,
yeah,
then you're more likely to have a career. But even that's beyond that. That is a rule that applies to.
many of
I'm gonna say it as bluntly as I can, which is that's a rule that applies to white people. It doesn't apply to us. You can know people,
Mm.
and it would still be a hard sell. I think this is something that I learned with my second film, but even our first film. So the lead up to the second film was quite interesting. Was that, like I said, we were broke. We were in London, depressed. Again, I'm gonna say it again. Michael Jackson died in that month of June, which was devastating for me, and that just piled on the misery. And then we were sitting in London Fields, coincidentally, the same place where we were shooting that film, and and a black guy called Kobe, a Nigerian dude, that was working for this company that we had seen in Cannes, who were interested in us. But Cannes is a crazy situation where you're trying to focus on everything at the same time because it's everyone and all the big fishes in one place. So it's not. So usually, like, you want to deal with the smaller fishes when you come back home. So, for example, for them, it was logical to meet us in London if we're both British,
Yeah.
right? But for us, really, we just really felt like a lot of them were just giving us the boot. But then, so me and my friend, producer, Greg, which is another producer I worked with afterwards, we're just having, we're just chilling, just trying to enjoy the good times. And then this guy, Kobe, uh, saw us, basically spotted us, and just came running and was like, "Are you guys the guys that were in Cannes?" And then we were like, "Yeah." We're a little bit suspicious. And he was like, "Yeah, because we got your cards and stuff, and then we lost your details, and we couldn't get back in touch with you." And we were like, "Okay, cool." And he's like, "Would really like to speak to you guys about your film and all of that." And now you have to understand, at that time, me and Greg are baroque, and I'm at the time like homeless because I broke up with my girlfriend. It's a Michael Jackson thing. She did not react the way I thought she should, so I fucked off because I was a drama queen, and and so we're sitting there like, at the time we're eating bagels and crisps, and drinking water. So like I said, so we're cycling everywhere. It's like, I don't think I've ever been that broke since or ever. Um, and so this guy is talking to us. It's like, "Oh, you should come to the office tomorrow, and then we can discuss what can happen and stuff. And we'd be very interested. We have some things like cooking that I think you'd be very interested with." And I'm like, "Okay, cool, I guess." And then he leaves, and we're like, "Yes, finally, an opportunity." So, and then prior to that, I tend to channel my anger or anguish into creative stuff. And at the time, I had this script that I had been writing. When I say I was homeless, I was not really homeless. I was sleeping at a friend's restaurant. So at night, I would sleep in a restaurant. I would sleep at friends' houses, but I didn't have like my own place. But all the way through that, I literally channeled everything that I was feeling into a very, very unfiltered script that I had under my hand. And so I had this script that I had shown Greg and a few other friends. And a few of them had dismissed it as something a little too crazy. So we go to this meeting the next day on a bicycle, all the way to central London. And it's the big league. Like, we go on the third floor, there's a fucking receptionist, there's like, water and biscuits and all kinds of things. We get sat into this massive conference room, and then we are sat with like the junior team. Not the big team, but the junior team, the team that's supposed to develop all the new and cool stuff. And at the time, they were working with the Edinburgh Festival, and they were about to launch, again, this is 2009, they were about to launch a VOD channel. So video on demand.
Okay.
And their idea was to basically get the rights for Highlight, my film, to be the film that would launch the platform.
Impressive. Yeah.
That's how much they like the film. So we talk, and they're like, so would you be okay to give us uh, um, a non-exclusivity deal, so you can still do whatever you want to with the film, but we get the right to distribute it and to also uh, show it as a premiere at the Edinburgh Film Festival. And I'm like, I'm like, yeah. So that's great and everything. And then just before we leave, Kobe, again, thank fuck for this guy, goes like, do you guys have any new project? So what's next, kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I wrote this script. If you want to have a look at it, I don't know what it's worth, but at least, that's I just finished it like a week ago. And it's like, oh yeah, cool. They send it to me. So I'm like, oh, I got it here. So I give him like a hard copy because we were a little bit prepared. And then we go back home, thinking not much because we're gonna receive an offer for the distribution. They already told us that we were not getting any money for it, but if it was going on a video on demand website and it would sell, then we would get a part of the profit. So that was like a good deal for us. We would get 50% of every sale.
Okay.
And so we get back home, and then I think maybe 4 hours later, we get a call from Kobe, and it's like, you guys have to come back to the office today if you can. And we're like, oh, fuck. They probably watch the film again, and they're not happy, and blah, blah, blah. So we come back to the office. They have a contract ready for the distribution deal already. And so like, could you sign this and all of this? And we have something else we want to talk to you about. But first, give us the right to this. Let's get this out of the way. So we signed the thing. Good. Our film has like an official distribution deal. We're very happy about that. And they're like, okay, we read your script and we want in. So we want to produce it.
Wow.
So again, this story takes like a whole different turn. So they're like, okay, they want to invest, but they'll only invest if we find other investors, and et cetera, et cetera. And so we know that the film has legs. So I work a little bit more on the script, and then we do a bunch of things. So we put a general call out for investors, et cetera. We meet a bunch of investors. For the first time in my life, I get to pitch for a film. And so I pitched the hell out of it, and we end up with £860,000 to make our second feature film. Completely with no supervision, completely unsupervised. We get paid, and yeah. So, I mean, I make demands usually that are a bit crazy. So I always say that I want complete control, I want final cut, and I don't want anyone hovering over my head. So, so we pitch to these private investors that are all financiers in Hong Kong or London or Paris, and a couple of French companies, again, that we had met in Cannes, and these guys in London. And so all in all, we get a really good budget for the film, and so we start shooting. By September, we start pre-production. A bunch of other stuff happens that's too much for this. We don't have time to get into the specifics, but we get to finish the second feature film within the course of, I guess, within a year from that moment, from that meeting, we've shot and finished a feature film that was professionally produced and made and shot and all of these things for a shit ton of money. And then we did run out of money at the end of the film for stupid reasons that I'm not gonna get into. But if I'm going to sort of like a couple of our assistants had assumed that a French actor was indeed French. He was a black actor. So there was two brothers in the film. Both of them came from France. So they were both actors in France, friends of mine. But one of them had the French citizenship, like I do.
Yeah.
But his older brother had the Malian citizenship.
Oh, so yeah.
Yes.
So
There you go.
basically, immigration was like, I don't think so. It's like,
Yes.
I don't think
That
so.
is.
Ah.
That is exactly correct. So that kind of like that really fucked the end of of something that was really dreamy, because a few of our investors realizing that we were not going to get the biggest French talent, because that guy had been in like hidden from like Michael Haneke. He
Right.
had a massive profile in France, but he was Malian. So that guy not being in the film, we lost a bunch of our funding. And losing a bunch of our funding whilst you just about to shoot is going to create some problems. And so that the whole thing developed throughout the course of shooting the film. So in the end, we still managed to finish. But it was we scrapped. Like it was through grit and blood, sweat, and tears, and yeah, I literally had to steal that from people around me. But we finished it. But then after that, I basically was burnt out because I had done too much. You know, I had been on the back foot for a year. I done everything on that film. From the writing to the producing to the lead acting to the tea making, the truck driving. I was everywhere.
You strapped them to your back and you were sweeping as well as going.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I did some of the makeup. I was handling too much, and then I just literally went from that to the editing, with the mental stress of not having any money. And then this was like editing this film while eating a soup every day, if I could. But literally, again, like the same fucking thing I was a year before. Is like, but this time I have like a super expensive computer, very expensive footage, but again, no money to eat, and just like a fucking ridiculous thing. But that didn't last long. It was just the time that I finished editing the film, and then I just got back to work. But so I did this film, and then by the end of it, I was completely burnt out, and then I felt let down by my crew, because they did not stick by me in the way that I thought they should. It was almost like the minute the money ran out, like everybody just disappeared.
Right.
And of course, I was blamed uh, for things that never materialized. So it was always, it's this thing where I guess you can make a mistake when you're white and it's just a mistake, but when you're black, it was almost like as if I intended to cheat everyone. Like it was a very strange thing. It was like there was all of this suspicion that was created by an evil woman that was on set. Our costume designer was a clear racist, had a very difficult time having a black man as a boss. Like most of them, to be honest. I'm gonna be clear. Like most of the crew had a very difficult time to have the figure of authority being a French black guy. That like for them, they deserved it more than me, in a sense. A lot of it through the simple thing that they all went to film school and blah de blah de blah. And this guy that's never gone to film school has this opportunity. And I literally like I picked every single one of them, gave them positions that they would never have dreamed of getting on any other project. But for me, it was all about giving opportunity to people that never got it. So a lot of people that were just assistant or barely employed became like head of departments. My DOP had never been a director of photography on a big project, but suddenly was a director of photography on a feature film, which is a massive step forward.
So if you were to do this again, like, would you, like, with regards to the hiring process, right? Would you be would you be looking at people who've had a little bit more experience with regards to, like, as you said, director of photography, or basically someone who's done like the jobs or roles you needed in those key positions?
Yeah, I think what I'm about to say might be a little bit controversial, but I don't know I don't think I would make it in England. I think the English mentality is not suited for independent filmmaking that is basically the love of the art and putting the art before the paycheck. I think we have a very difficult time in England to have just an indie scene because it's all about, like, London has this massive problem in which you can get a lot of good commercial work.
Right.
So as a professional cameraman or soundman or whatever, you get like to work on adverts and Pinewood and big things that are not necessarily have anything to do with the arts.
Right.
So an art film, and they don't come often in England because they're very difficult to make. When it's difficult to find a crew that's going to lower their wages, and even the idea of like surviving in London. Like, for example, in America, you can get a cheap flat and you can live on a budget. But in London, that's extremely difficult to do. So in order for you to be able to give your time to a project that's not going to pay you really well, it's an impossibility. And the mentality on top of this is not here. It does not exist.
So you would say basically with, like, it might be a London thing where it's either big feature film or big sort of commercial projects. With regards to like sort of cost and funding, if you were like, if you were living in LA or like California, like every time I hear people talk about it, it's not the cheapest place to live as well. So there is that factor.
No, it's not. It's not.
No, so like I would have thought, like if it's a case of like sort of more indie type sort of films and stuff like this, like with regards to like France and sort of its sort of filmmaking sort of heritage, would you be looking to do your sort of next film in France with, say, English actors, or would it be French actors purely? How do you think?
It would be, I guess, the next film that I'm planning to do anyway will be a French film with me at the helm and probably a bunch of French actors, but then do it a little bit like just do it truthfully. I think there's many French films that have broken through the international frontiers, like Portraits of a Lady on Fire is the most recent example, where it doesn't matter the language as long as the story and the cinematography is good. And I think I focus too much on wanting to make something that people here would, I guess, I don't know that I'm not sure. I'm not sure what did not work in the past films, but what I can tell you is that you don't, like a film like Portrait of a Lady on Fire or La Vie d'Adèle, or like Blue is the Warmest Color, any films that is French and that are a big deal in the UK, the similar films don't get produced here. Like it's very difficult to look back in the last 3 or 4 years in England and identify a really good independent film that touched the nation, right?
Mm. Like, this is the thing. I think it's partly down to what's happened with film production over the last, I'm gonna say, 10 to maybe 15 years. There
Yeah.
was like the whole thing. Well, you could say it coincided with the sort of first Marvel film, sort of. Okay, like
Yeah.
it was a case of there was this sort of media, like sort of small to medium sized film, which often got into sort of Oscar territory, BAFTA territory. But
Mm.
the sort of film industry, from what I observed, sort of switched and changed because
Yeah.
television was starting to take off, and that sort of
Yep.
small to medium tier like filming like market sort of started to evaporate and like die slightly.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
hasn't sort of come back until maybe recently with the whole sort of streaming wars which are going on right now.
Mm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like because there hasn't just been the funding for it. Because if you're talking about a big studio, like your Universal, like your like Disney, like
Mm.
they need to have that sort of or
I
know,
agree.
to
I
just
agree.
bring in the cash, but they're not
Mm.
willing to risk doing a small film. Because, for example, one of my favorite films, The Usual Suspects, right? That cost
Mm-hmm.
that costs around about 10, maybe 15 million. Small
Yeah, that's right.
budget, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, that's correct.
But
That's
you're not
correct.
gonna get like if you try doing that today, well, if you tried doing it around about the time you did your film, that wouldn't even be on the radar. And that was a
Yeah.
huge commercial success.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And that's, I guess that's the thing. I think there's still many independent films being made. They're just not made in the UK. Um, and the UK does not really have a market for it. Um, so Sundance still it's still going strong. Like every year, South by Southwest is a crazy good festival. Cannes is still huge and still has all kinds of film from all over the world. It's just that in England we have an inability to invest money into small productions. It's always the same buddies that are making those shit films through the BFI or the lottery fund, and that's the only help you get from anything in England to get money for films. So funding in England is already a big problem.
Mm,
Not only that it's a big problem, but it's a big problem that is even bigger for people from diversity background because we get to be overlooked. Usually, it's the same players that play with their friends and don't open the doors to anybody else. So you get terrible films made, and nobody's held accountable. When in France, for example, there is the CNC, which is basically a, a funding organism for all French films. This is why in France you have like hundreds and hundreds of films produced every year because there is funding available for art house, not just like the studio films. There's a lot of studio films made in France, but the French cinema industry is nothing to be compared to when it comes to the ability to produce homegrown films by new talents and things. I'm not saying that it's not also very closed and very white. It's the same thing everywhere. Every like Hollywood, England, France,
mm,
it's all very closed and very white. But if I remove myself from the equation or remove diversity from the equation, the French system is much more relevant than the English one. In England, I could ask you right now, do you know the last film that was produced by like the British Film Institute? And it's hard to say. But they have money every year. They have over I can't remember hundreds of millions that they just squander on. Yeah, I know it's a tough one. I can't even tell you. I don't even know.
no, like um, no, I'm kind of at a loss to even
Yeah,
to
yeah,
give you like an idea of what that might have been.
yeah.
There,
And even to the point that I could ask the question, what was the last a successful British film that we can generally talk about, like we talk about some of these French film or even some of these like semi-independent film that we can see
Mm.
on Netflix this year, like these years, you know.
Yeah, I would say the last successful film, what kind of comes to mind, and like I could be like, it'll be either 1917, which was a huge like Hollywood bug.
Yeah,
So,
there you
uh,
go.
but I would say if we go a little bit earlier than that, I would say The Favorite. But yeah.
Yeah, but even The Favorite was like Yorgos Lanthimos, and it's kind of a blockbuster because you don't do The Favorite if you don't have like Oliver Coleman
Mm,
and Emma Stone. That's not really an independent film. That's like it still has like a massive budget and the ability to really like generate star power.
mm,
If you think about like the small films where you get like unknowns in the films and you get like a first time director, like when Yorgos Lanthimos had done like 4 films,
yeah.
and 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 actually that's a great example because his first film were made in Greece, and even Greece, who was like in financial turmoil at the time, still had money to put into art house films. When this guy is literally like a Greek talented filmmaker makes one of the most memorable British film. What the fuck? It's like,
Yeah.
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is how little talent we develop in this country. This is how few chances there is for proper homegrown talents to just get their hands dirty. Like you got to make a few bad films before you can make like a great one. But
Mm,
if you don't even have to get the opportunity to make your shit film, your shit first film, and then the opportunity to make your shit second film, you're never gonna make like your massive opus. And this is why like a lot of talent end up in America or somewhere else, or just don't develop at all. You shift towards documentary, which is cheaper, I guess. And but to be perfectly honest, most successful British directors or British filmmakers tend to have to go through the hard route of going to through advertising,
mm,
which is great, but that's like quicksand. You got to be very skilled to be able to get out of it because it's an industry that function on repetition and is very comfortable. You get really good money for a very specific type of work, and once you get into that, it's you just don't get out. You know, a few friends of mine have been in the advertising industry for the last 15 years. When the initial goal was to do 2 or 3 years, make some money, get out, and make some art.
uh,
Never happened.
yeah. You you more than likely know Casey Neistat.
Of course, yes, very well. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
because like he said exactly what you said right there, because he was doing like TV commercials and everything like this,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it was just a case of there was a, like when I think he's sort of like well,
Eureka moment. Yeah.
yeah, was like when he just went in and like all he needs, he told him like literally told him that's where we want the camera.
Yep.
It's all right. I was
That's right.
just like, he sat there and was like, I'm not doing any of this. I'm not. I have no
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
creative input,
Yeah.
which was. Then he was like, I'm done with this, and then yeah,
Yeah,
came.
and then you move on. I mean, and then there's the thing. So for me, it's like there's an interesting thing about I guess in society today the measure of success.
Mm,
Many people have a different philosophies on what that means. And then for me, for example, success is the is having an idea and pursuing it, right? So, but for most people, the measure of success is how much have you made, or how many people have you seen, or do you have a Ferrari to prove that you were successful? And it's one of those things. Like I think I've been very successful at uh, going after what I deemed important, and I didn't lose track of that in a 15-year career of trying to be um, an art house independent filmmaker.
Mm.
For me, it was never about making money. It was never about being someone that would earn a lot being a director. I'm never, and was never interested in directing an advert for Guinness or whatever. It's not. It doesn't speak to me at all. I wouldn't know what to do.
Mm.
I wouldn't know where to put myself. I wouldn't even know how to start. So I never did. All I've ever pursued was trying to get better at telling important stories with usually social justice at the core, or trying to um, speak with my voice in a way that is to the level of what I deem to be artistic enough and beautiful enough to touch other people, to change lives, to change minds, to open debates. That's my aim, and I guess I've done this. So it's very complicated for me to sit in front of people and be like, and they're like, oh, so you're a filmmaker. What have you done? What have I seen? Well,
Mm.
probably nothing, because that was not my measure of success. I didn't set out to do films that everybody would see. If I wanted to do that, I would have gone at it completely differently.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I would have gone at. I think for me it was mostly like create a piece of art that is, I guess, critically acclaimed, and most importantly, that I'm completely comfortable with. That there's no aspects of it that I'm looking at and be like, okay, I sold out on that part, or this is not me, but I had to do this because of these people or whatever.
Mm.
Um, so for me, it's an ongoing process. It's like the success in that is that I now know exactly what I need to do and how I do things. And again, like I've made as many films as I felt like doing, and every time I want to do a project, it happens. So now, whether that project is seen or is online, for me, that's not the point. I'm not in this to be famous. I've got many other ways to eat. So I make art. Art is not designed to generate income. And I think that's the part in society where we are at the moment, is that there is this conflation between successful art and finances, in a sense, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah. I hear that. And like this is where it might sound like when you mention art, and but like this is the whole thing. With art for yourself, is there a sort of overall goal you want to achieve, say, over the next few years? Or is it a case of like when inspiration takes you, that's when you act upon it?
I think if there's an if to answer one part of the question that I definitely have the answer to, is the goal is to get recognized by my peers, people I respect. It's always the same thing. We want to belong to a certain group of people, and for me, I want to be seen as a genuine director, genuine author, someone that is good at writing scripts and is good at telling stories through the medium of film. That's like the goal and the aim. Now, for me, in that, there is no financial entanglement. It's like if one day, I remember Martin Scorsese referencing Ousmane Sembene, who's a very famous Senegalese director from the 70s, one of the first and pioneers of African cinema. And I remember in an article, Martin Scorsese literally referencing Ousmane Sembene. Ousmane Sembene is not well known by any stretch of the imagination, right? But for me, I was like, if I get that one day, if I get I don't know, contemporary like Sam Mendes saying, oh, there's this filmmaker, Mickael N'Dour, who's very talented. I've seen one of his films and it really made me think or whatever. I've accomplished what I set out to accomplish. Like I would be satisfied amply with that sort of thing. Nothing else. I think the rest of it is just is almost it's a byproduct, these winning awards and fancy Oscars and whatever. It's but that's for me. That's yeah, it's nice. Sure.
What's
Uh,
important is just
it's it's
recognition.
it's nice, but I think the nice part about it and the unfortunate part about it is that um, of it creates more opportunities when you get exposure, because of this conflation between talent and finances. So you got to play the game to a certain extent, which is the thing that I'm starting to do. This is why I'm on this podcast. This is why I created profiles and things, and I start to update my photos. Is that I've done the I've built the basement, like the foundation is solid. I
Hmm.
can now start to build the edifice in a sense. So I'm ready to enter the game. I don't think when I was younger I was neither ready or even willing, but I think now I'm at the part, I'm at the moment in my life in which I understand that in order for me to make art, I need to also participate in whatever game this is of showing my colors and you know
Yeah. There is an old saying, it sometimes goes like, um, three for them, one for me, if you get what I mean.
yep. Yeah, I do. Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
so,
Yeah, that's very exemplify my thinking when it comes to these things.
mm. So with that, is it a case of now you're looking at the whole fit, like you're looking at the whole playing field, the whole chessboard, say, with fresh
Hmm.
eyes. Like
Yeah.
you've got an idea of where you want to go, and you have an idea of how you're gonna most probably get there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is like I said. I'm I'm a man with a plan.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's always there's always a way in which I figure I can succeed. And of course, like throughout this strange journey that I've been taking, which we haven't come to even half of it, because the last 5 years I was in the States. I've made tons of contact. I have when we say that it's about the people in the industry, I know these people now, but I think it was always about feeling ready and legitimate. And we just come at a time where uh, finally people are starting to ask and demand for our voices to be heard. There's an interest in hearing Black voices. And I think I have a particular voice, as I may have mentioned, like it's not every day that you're born in France in a Senegalese Muslim family, and you get to experience three different cultures in a space of 15 years. And that gives me a very unique perspective on most things, which is a very useful thing to have when you tell stories, because um, I guess you want to be unique in your own way. And there's no more unique than, again, like being from all places but not one. If you catch my drift, it's like I'm not really French, I'm not really Senegalese, I'm not really English, but you can hear that I spent time here. I'm not really American, but I do somehow have a very strong connection to that weird continent. um, yeah, it's a very strange one. That's a whole different podcast, my friend. America it was interesting, but in that thing, I made enough advances to now use these things to my advantage, in a sense. Use the connections that I have to make my projects move forward, and to be and for my next project, for example, so I'm writing now this French um, TV show. I'm writing the pilot for a big French production company. And so once it's finished, we are going to try to get it distributed through some of the most present means in France. And hopefully Netflix France will pick it up if we produce a really good first pilot. But that's the first thing that has to happen.
Ah, excellent, excellent. How many episodes are in a French series? Because
well, this one would be 10 episode per season. So the first arc is 10 episode, and it's a story about a young French female comedian who um, basically has a without giving too much, has the ability to, with the things she knows and the things she says, um, create a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, a lot of problems.
intriguing.
Very. I can't say much more because the concept is so good that I feel like if I just give a little too much away, then I may just not. I may give too much away. So I think sometimes it's important to just like keep as much mystique about the project as you can. But I think this one is good. And again, it's one of the very silly things is that it's not the best concept in the universe, but I have 15 years of learning how to tell a story. And now with that, I have the added benefit of knowing people that can make it happen. Yeah, and that's the thing that nobody ever talks about. But if you don't have famous friends, you don't get to big places.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. If you don't have a strong network of people,
It's
you can make it, but
yeah,
will be harder for you in the long run. But
yeah,
you really are making it. Those people.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that nobody tells you, but if you want your film to be selected in a festival, it's good to either have like a star, a recognizable star in your film, or for you to know someone on the panel, or even in the festival. It's a sad thing, but it's true. Like the programming guys are the one that program the films in the festival. If you know them, you're more likely to. If you have a relationship with them, you're more likely to have your film screened. It's a stupid thing. Like you can make the best film in the universe, but if you don't know anyone, then you are going to be competing with a million other guys. As soon as you know someone, then suddenly your project is on top of the pile. It's talked about. And that's what's happening with our project now. Is that we have a few, um, uh, you know, famous, even some world famous people um, in the project. Again, it's a funny one because one guy that's on the project used to be a breakdancer.
Okay.
Way back when I was shooting the UK B-Boy Championship in the UK, and he dated Madonna for a bit, and became a massive personality because of that. Yeah, he was like the French kid that was Madonna's boyfriend for a few years.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kid, I remember driving them around in South London when we were shooting the UK B-Boy Championship in Brixton. That was way back in 2005. And he was like a teenager at the time, but phenomenal dancer.
So are you saying you were driving around with this guy and Madonna in the back of your car?
No. At the time, he was not. He was not with Madonna. No, he was just a breakdancer. He was just a kid, like a French kid that came to the UK to compete.
Yeah.
But that was the beginning of our relationship. And then over the course of the years, they started dancing for different troops, and their profile got higher and higher. And then he was one of the backing dancer for Madonna in the show, and they ended up getting together. And they stayed together for like 2 or 3 years. And during that time, I remember shooting a video for my younger brother, who's a hip hop artist in France, and he came and danced in the video, just as a favor. And that's the kind of relationship that um, a lot of relationship that I had is sometimes they come from places where I would never have thought that that would have somehow an impact on my current career, but this one will. This is the one that has opened a lot of doors for us in Paris, um, and then so this project may be actually the most thoroughly produced projects that I have. Um, but then I'm not I'm never counting on all my eggs in one basket. So I'm writing a book, and then I'm writing another script that is hopefully going to be an interesting film, very personal film, very personal story. That again, it's one of those things. I don't know if we've talked much about it, but uh, I guess people have this idea of like what black men go through in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
but I think oftentimes is a superficial perception of what we project, um, and sometimes we also ourselves get lost in in this projection game. It's sometimes we all often talk young black men trying to project strength.
Mm. Like,
Uh,
yeah, the whole thing is some like, how can I put it? It's a false image in many of the times, which comes from either outside people perceiving that false image,
yeah,
and
yeah,
also that false image being projected. It's like, yeah, it's a weird like front of bravado at times, so you're not
that's
getting
correct. That's
uh,
correct.
the truth.
And so you can get very quickly lost in what you're trying to make believe, which change your perception of yourself, and ends up confusing the whole thing. So sometimes you're speaking with a voice that you're not necessarily sure that is yours,
Mm.
and that can create a lot of different dynamics in the world you live. And we must not forget. I love this song from that singer Mickael something, kicking or whatever, kicking now. I'm a black man in the white world.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if you remember the song. Let me see if I can. Fuck. I'm a black man. Yeah. So Michael Kiwanuka. That's his name.
No, I haven't seen that. No.
Yeah, Michael Kiwanuka became very famous with "Cold Heart." He became the one of the song in Big Little Lies.
Okay.
Yeah, and so he has this song called "I'm a Black Man in a White World," and it's exactly that. It's operating with something hidden in a world that's trying to expose everything about you, and also trying to paint you in a way that it's convenient for you to be angry, black, strong, whatever. When sometimes it could be the polar opposite, and
Mm.
in my case, it mostly is that I can sometimes come across as very revolutionary, angry, or outspoken, when my inner desire would be to hide in the deepest of forests and never be seen again. But it's like and it's funny the way people perceive us through one particular prism of expectation and who we are as individuals. And I think we even often have hidden depth only because we have mostly to play roles in order to make people comfortable. I
Mm.
think if we truly were who we were, the world would be a very uncomfortable place for white people.
Well, I would say with regards to that, I would say there are a number. like when it comes to like black, white, like pick your race wherever you want to go. There
Yeah.
is like, yeah, there is an element of what you said which is true. If it was like, if you went, okay, let's have all the honest conversations that we need to have, those honest conversations,
Yeah.
then you'll be like, there will be a number of people which are sort of would be feeling an air of discomfort, or they just don't
Oh,
want to do it.
yeah.
Not, but like what I also would say is like, when you look at, if you look at any sort of friendship group, and this is where it really shows its face,
Yeah.
if you're trying to, like, if a person in that friendship group is trying to make an improvement or change in their life,
Yeah.
the people within that group of friends, now it doesn't matter which race or where they come from, will be
Yeah.
like going, no,
Yeah.
don't change, don't do
Yeah.
that change, don't make
Yeah.
this improvement, don't like go here, because
Yeah.
they are quite comfortable with who you are, and
Yeah.
like, because that fits quite neatly in their like little world, and any
Yeah.
sort of changes of that starts to like go, okay,
Mm.
no. And this is
Yeah.
the reason when you see someone, like, if they like say they were very fat at one point and they lose all
Yeah.
this weight, get in shape and everything like this, all of a
Yeah.
sudden those friends they used to hang with, who like them as their fat person,
Yeah.
not there anymore. Or
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like if that person, like, you know what I mean, became financially successful, it's like, look,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
I'm not down with you doing this 14-hour work
Yeah.
day to put
Yeah.
forward for your success. Stay down here with me.
Yeah,
Let's like,
stay down there. Yeah,
look,
yeah. Let's hang. Yeah, no. And look, I think it's there's definitely something I 100% agree. You have to watch who you surround yourself with,
mm,
because not everybody is going to be keen to help you with your changing journey.
yeah,
Um, but there's also, like I said, for me, there's um, the added onus of expectations. I think as certain groups, I I wrote a blog not that long ago about, for example, mental health in the Black community.
mm-hmm,
You know, you tell your Black friends in general that you're going to see a shrink and you're crazy.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
That's the stigma. It's like we don't do that, and it's a funny thing, because so it got me to ask myself question as to, first of all, is it the right thing to do? Is it something that actually works? Is it something that everybody should go through? Is it something that no one should go through? But most importantly, um, for me, the first thing that I identify is that, um, as the Black diaspora all over the world, um, a bit like Jewish people, we have inherent trauma, no matter where you are. Like you can say, like, we did not come here on holiday and then stayed, right? It's never like, I look at everyone. I go to America and I speak to my American friends, like, their parents or their parents' parents didn't get there by choice. England is the same. The Caribbean is the same. Africa, whenever my parents ended up in France, it was not because um, they really liked apples and they did not grow in Senegal. It was just because Senegal was so impoverished that opportunities lied beyond their borders.
mm,
And for me, it's like, it's something that is easily identifiable, is that we are all living with hidden traumas, however deep they are, however um, uh, hidden they can be, however comfortable a lot of us pretend to be. We live in hostile environments on a daily basis. It's something that I realize whenever I talk to my girlfriend is white, and and it's this thing where, for her, life is never about where it's going to be problematic for her to exist. She can exist wherever she wants. That's never part of the question. When for me, it's always part of the question. That's the first question that comes to my mind, is that, okay, will the environment accept my presence?
mm,
Like, And then we can talk about everything else. We can talk about ambition. We can talk about friendship. We can talk about whatever the fuck you want. But first, is the environment will be prosperous for my growth?
Yeah.
In any shape or form. Can I take root? And at the moment, it's like the entire world is telling us we can't take root anywhere. And if we do, it's almost like we are doing it unlawfully in some form. It's a very strange thing. All the way to Brazil, like Brazil, one of the most diverse.
Like, this is the thing. Like I hear you, and like this is the thing. Like there's been times where I've thought about other places in the country where it's like, yeah, exactly. It's like, what's gonna be the racial sort of dynamic? What's gonna be like the sort of like general, like not mixing, but me sort of flowing through life? Is it going to be a case of, do I have to be on edge all the time, everything like this? And one of the things I would simply say, like some of it is me overthinking like issues and problems.
Same thing here.
Not doesn't exist, but
always,
there is like there's going to be a sort of element of truth to it. Like it's a case of until you go, you don't know. If you get what I mean?
Until you go, you don't know. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. With regards to sort of like going back to with you and your blog about their mental health within like the Black community or BAME communities or however you want to say it, I would say
I say Black because that's the one I know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What I would simply say is there, especially amongst the Black community, and this sort of goes with the bravado and the sort of front type thing.
Of course. Yeah.
Doing the whole asking for help, it's like there is never enough of it. It's a case of more times than not, like when it comes down to doing something, a project, a scheme, or anything like this.
Oh yeah.
You like it's like I'm going at it alone. It's like look, like you can't like, and I had the same sort of like got to go it alone. But that is it is madness to do. Like if you want to do something grand, if you want to do something epic, if you want to do something monumental, you never can do it alone. Just simply look at anyone who's achieved anything of significance. You can't do it by yourself. And so like asking for that help to do something epic, to do something grand is, I say there is an element of like, there's not a lot of that being done. And I don't think a case of sometimes it might not be a lot of help offered, but until you ask, you never know who's going to offer it, you know? And so it's very hard on that front. So when it comes to sort of mental health, where, okay, let's just say only recently because of this celebrity and that celebrity coming out and go, mental health, blah, blah, blah. And because it's trendy, like there is not enough there's not enough help asked within Black communities about that, where there was most probably even what people don't realize, there is even a greater stigma in Black communities with regards to mental health, which I'd say other communities, I might be absolutely wrong about this, I'm not going to give it 100%, which I don't think exists in the same sort of level.
No, it never does.
So like, you know what I mean? So that would simply go, more people need to be able to, one, talk about it so they can get help about it. And two, like, having the confidence that if they did ask for help, someone will be like, they won't turn around and go, you're crazy, like deal with that.
Sort yourself out, mate. Like your problem. And I think this is sometimes the trouble is that we are in an environment in which we are supposed to be fine all the time. Like I noticed this with a lot of my African descended friends, is that we always good. You're good, I'm good. We're always good. When sometimes I'm not nearly good. I'm not even close to be good. How you doing? I'm good, bruv. It's like
yeah, you know what? But when someone goes, I'm good, like good is just in the middle. And like when you got everyone saying, I'm good, it's like,
Yeah.
and most of the times it's like anyone who's like, hey, I'm good. Yeah, and like, you know what? I really could do with a hug right now, and I need to talk.
Right. No, that is something you can never say.
Yeah, but like,
Yeah, I need a hug right now is a sentence that I don't know that I've said to any black man ever.
well, any black man, like, but you know what I mean, right now, and like this is the thing, we are
Or
living.
anyone ever, actually.
Like, you know what? Hey, we're in a world which I would say is going through the true, like this is a true say, going through unprecedented times at this present time. Look,
Yeah.
if you said, look, if we were doing this podcast in 2019,
Yeah.
like, okay, like to go right, like, could you imagine a world where they would like shut down everything for yeah, like about 6 months, like basically,
Never.
yeah, talking like no sports, no nothing like this, like you know what I mean,
Yeah.
global economy about to hit the wall and everything like this. You'll be like, don't be silly. It's like, look,
Yeah.
you'll go like, especially yourself, you might go, oh, that might make an interesting TV show or movie. Yeah, I go, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
you might,
they probably did exist. I think it was this idea that we were going to we're fearing the dystopia.
yeah.
That's all of the last few years. It's always like dystopian futures. Dystopian. We literally just hit
It's like,
the.
it's like, hey, forget the future. It's like, it feels like it's a dystopian like present. In like
Yeah.
when you look at the TV, some days you're like, oh my lord. And like when you look outside, especially today, like right
Yeah.
now, it's bright,
Yeah.
it's sunny.
Yeah.
You can hear birds singing, and like
Yeah.
you turn to the TV and like, oh my god, look out again. But wait, there is something is not adding up here.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Like
Yeah,
I think I had this moment of realization that everything could change at a drop of a penny.
mm.
Was sorry, it was the recent explosion in Beirut.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I've seen that. That was just like it was the very definition of shock and awe because like it was just like no. You saw the little like explosions going off of the fireworks.
And like, oh, something's happening. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, bam! I was like, oh my god! It's like It's like
it's like this can happen where people live. A friend of mine lives in Beirut, and it was interesting because I saw the explosion, and then obviously because our minds function like this, is that this is happening to somebody else. It's like, wow, let me share this on my social media. And then immediately my brain went into, do I know anyone in Beirut? Oh, shit, I do. Oh, she's a really good friend.
Yeah.
Let's check on her. And the minute I call her, I can't get through to her. But then within 10 minutes, she's posted this horrendous video of her flat where the windows just have blown to shit and everything is just like destroyed. And her flatmate has like blood on his face. He was literally watching TV.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things you're like, okay, those 100,000s of people lives have changed and shifted like that.
Yeah. And like this is the thing, you're watching the video literally minutes after it's happened.
Yeah.
And like the whole thing is like it's kind of surreal because it looks like it's something out of a movie. Because
exactly.
And like the last time I had that sort of feeling where I'm watching something happen, and it was like, this feels like that didn't really happen in real life. It was September 11th, but like I was like watching that, I was like, like how the hell does a plane fly into attack into town? And then when you saw the second one, you were like, oh god damn, that was no accident.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, I don't know how it was for you, but for me, I know I was sitting on the couch, and at the time we had like this 24-hour silent news cast, and sometime I would flick through the channel, and I was on that channel. It was early in the morning. I was having breakfast, and I saw a tower with smoke coming out in New York, and there was a helicopter filming it, and I kind of like zoned and just was looking at it, not really thinking much. And then there's a point in the corner of the screen, there's a plane, and I'm like, and then it just hits the tower. And I'm literally like, what
Yeah,
is happening? Is
yeah.
this a movie? Like, I'm starting to change the channel. Did this actually just happen?
Oh yeah. And like this is the thing, like these sort of dramatic things which you see, and like it's just like right, it is surreal. We are living like a, a surreal, unprecedented time right now,
Oh
and
God,
like
yeah.
with regards to everything what is going on from basically this like frig Australia being on fire end of last year,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're basically look to Corona right now, to like
Yeah.
Black Lives Matters, to like Libya, like well,
Yeah, we haven't even
like,
touched on that. We haven't even touched
yeah,
on the whole George Floyd,
oh yeah,
Black Lives Matter thing.
no, put it this way, yeah, that would definitely be a very long conversation, but it is only 8 months into 2020, and like
Yeah.
you know what I mean, like look, I have never had a year where I've seen all this sort of madness go on
Yeah.
at one time, and yeah, uh,
I mean, it makes you think. It makes you also think that anyone living in the 40s, it was kind of that. It's like,
uh,
like East London. So a friend of mine bought a house, and then in the conversation, casually said, "Oh yeah, this was one of the houses that was blitzed."
yeah, it's
And
like
I was like, and then you kind of think, you're like, oh shit, some people were our age living
yeah,
through rubbles.
yeah, like this is the thing,
That,
like I'm sure there's people like you know what I mean, like in the twilight of their life, like
yeah.
looking at going at like 2020 and like really this
Oh,
is what you guys are losing your mind over,
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah. So
like
this is your crazy thing.
yeah, you're like going yeah, and like I'm going this is unprecedented times, like
Yeah, yeah,
just,
yeah,
just saying that yeah,
yeah,
it's like going it must really like get a little bit of perspective, like
yeah,
there was many a night where the bonds were falling time and
yeah,
time again, like you
yeah,
know what, getting up next day,
yeah.
then going off to work and like getting on with it. Yeah, you like yeah, Australia
No
was on
food.
fire. Yeah,
Yeah,
Australia was
no
on
food.
fire. Yeah, you had this little pandemic which has only
Yeah.
killed like blah, 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 not that many, and like you know what I mean. Yeah, you've now
But
still
that's all. I think this whole thing when people say, "Oh, the pandemic hasn't killed many people," well, I would like to give credit to the reaction. The reason it hasn't killed so many is because we literally went into lockdown everywhere in the world. That saved lives, you
yeah,
know.
like,
If we had just let it run through as a population, it would be a whole different story, right?
and like this is the whole thing because like if I was in the government, I'll just sit there and like look, whatever I do, you're gonna like come to me and go, you did
Yeah,
the wrong thing. And it's
yeah,
like
yeah. Of course, of course.
if you let it run rampant and it killed like if it killed say 2 million people in the UK, God forbidding, but you know what I mean. If it killed,
But that's the thing. It would have had we not implemented these like drastic measures.
and you
It
know
would
what?
have.
Yeah, and this is what. How do you know it would have killed that many people? It's like that's how it looks come at you.
I know.
Oh,
I know.
I,
Some people would say that. I would say the simplest thing is that I caught it, and it almost terminated me. Yeah.
you had it. Oh
Oh
God.
yeah, 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 yeah. So I have personal experience with it, and it's like, yeah, it's like most people say, you feel like someone is sitting inside your chest on your lungs.
Yep.
And I've smoked, I've done everything you want to do in my past. I've had like bronchitis and all kinds of things. Last year I had a sarcoidosis, which is like a pulmonary infection. But this thing took me out
What?
for 2 weeks. I was not, and I was like, this is not something that I've ever had or that I wish to ever had before. And I was like, would I have been like 10 years older and less healthy?
Mm. No,
You know what I mean?
yeah, and like this is the thing, because people don't like haven't seen or felt that, and like, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like people are like standing from this, and look, I I have no idea how it's going to play out for the rest of the year. I don't know if like, yeah, lockdown 2 is on the
Oh,
horizon.
yes, that's coming so fast.
It's like,
That is, come on. Like, I mean,
hey,
like I said, you just look outside and it's like the rate of I think some people really, really are hurting in terms of like the economy. Like restaurants are closing, businesses are losing tons and tons of money. The government doesn't want to keep on furloughing the entire country. But I think the danger with what's happening right now is that we still don't know what the fuck this thing is. It's real. Like no matter however we stand on flat earth, the round earth, whatever, this shit, this shit is real.
uh,
Like,
uh, for anyone who's listening to this, the earth is round. I don't care what anyone says. Earth is
yeah. Well, I mean that's the thing.
round.
Like
The math
so,
stands.
some people would disagree, but I agree. The Earth is round, for as far as I know, anyway. Um, but the thing is that this shit is real, and we don't know what it is, and we don't know how long it's going to last. But it's here,
Yeah.
and even if it's not like if it's something that affects like a very small margin of the population, uh, it's always that thing. A friend of mine was like, "Yeah, but it only kills like a few people." I was like, "Okay, uh, that sort of thinking." Has led to one of the biggest disasters in humanity.
No,
We can't.
yeah, this whole thing. Like when you say, you hear people and they say it only kills a few people, and you're like, okay, right, yeah. And if you haven't really sort of tackled the source or the root of the problem,
Yeah.
and it kills
Yeah.
more, then like, yeah, you know what? Then if it's really sort of does a tag team with like
Yeah.
flu, and let's be honest, flu kills a few people each year, like
Yeah.
50,000 people or so. You go, wait, that ain't too bad. But if it's like does a real tag team with flu, and all of a sudden,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
But
200,000
I mean,
people.
look,
Like,
listen.
hey,
Those people are even funnier in a sense because I had a few people like this telling me, "Ah, come on, it only kills a few people." I was like, "Okay, are you willing to sacrifice your grandma, or your father, or your kid,
yeah,
or yourself?" And they're like, "No, no, 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 no." But there you go. Then
yeah, like,
it's easier when you think it happens to other people, but as soon as it happens to you, then it becomes real. And for the people that I know to whom it happens, so I know this like I was doing this documentary on the Hasidims in Stamford Hill,
mm,
Hasidic Jews,
yeah,
and their community have been devastated by COVID-19, like the death rate there, it's insane, like because they did not adhere to the same thing, they did not mask, they did not
mm,
social distance, and so they already have the problematic that they have their own health services,
yeah,
and so that basically like they had some of the biggest spikes in people getting infected and people actually dying from the virus, um, in the recent month. And we don't talk much about it. We don't hear much about it in the news, but it's a real threat there. Like I know at least 3 people that have like literally gone through COVID that were perfectly fine beforehand,
mm,
and just gone. They were not friends, but they were people that I had interviewed or been around or whatever. So it's a real thing. I would like people to take it as seriously as they can, because you better be safe than sorry, right?
mm.
If it's nothing and we do everything, then nobody gets hurt. But if it's something and we do nothing, then a lot of people will get hurt.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I agree. And like this is the thing, like Because like people are now sort of economically hurting, it's like, you know what I mean? Like I was talking to a chap the other day, and like I had this sort of like how the recession would most probably go. Like it
Yeah.
would be a U, like basically
Right.
go down
Yeah. Yeah.
for a
Yeah. Yeah.
while
Yeah.
and then come back
Yeah.
up. Like I
Right.
was like, going, yeah, I see it as a being a U recession. He goes, no, I see it being a L recession. I was like, oh,
Wow. Okay. Okay.
hey.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So it's like going, okay. So you don't see any exit within the next 12, 18 months. It was like, no, I don't see any exit in that time frame. And you're just like,
Right.
oh, you're like, oh, okay. Look, this is the thing. I'm part of the people who have been furloughed, and like this is the thing.
Right.
So
Right.
right now I'm in this world of limbo where, okay, technically, yes, I am employed, but
Uh,
technically, but
yeah.
I might not be employed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
and that stands for like the company I working for, that stands for pretty much maybe like 70% of all the people who work for the company.
Wow.
So
Wow.
you don't like this is the whole thing. You don't know what's gonna happen until most probably end of September.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Like well, and that will become sort of clear, like, oh, this is the situation. And I think
Yeah.
that's a game thousands of people, millions of people who are currently on the furlough because come
Right.
come September, furlough ends in the UK. Like they doing that, and yeah, there'll be a number of people either looking for a job
Yeah.
or they're not. I was talking like I was on the South Coast. Like I did this thing called the Seven Sisters Walk from like Seaford to Eastbourne, and like I was talking to, we met up with this couple friends of my like girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
and like he was like working for Manchester, like he was working in Manchester Airport, part of the ground support crew, and
Mm-hmm.
the company he works for, he was like on furlough, like he's back in work now, but they're looking to make out of 8,000 people, 4,000 people redundant.
What?
So that will be like September, October. And like this is the thing, not unless if
Well,
something drastically changes.
listen, I think this is when there's like obviously when we talk politics, there was this idea of like universal basic income. That's when they're gonna have to seriously think about something like that, because otherwise there's a revolution on in the horizon.
Well,
Like too many unemployed people with no opportunities, with an economy that is shut down. That's a recipe for disaster.
mm, yeah, like this is the thing, with the economy shut down with no sort of real purpose, that is never an easy place to be in because like,
Yeah.
if there is a second lockdown,
Right.
you know, that is definitely a tough thing, tough thing. But yes,
We'll see.
yeah.
We'll see.
Like, okay, what I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then like
Yes.
I'm going to set you free.
No, don't worry. That's good.
Yeah, if I had the power to like grant a wish of change you would like to see in the world, what would that change be?
Oh, that's a good one. I guess my first thought, and I'm sure that may change, but my first thought would be um, to have a society that no longer puts profit ahead of everything, because I think that is the cancer of societies, that we are viewing everything through the prism of this capitalism,
Mm,
and that everything is to be made into a product or needs to have a profit, and there needs to be a profit margin. In order to have a profit, you need to exploit something. Um, and so you need to exploit resources or people or nations, and you create imbalances that are impossible to resolve. So if we were in a world where there's no need for profit, I think a lot of the problems will subside and disappear. That's genuinely what I think.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I will get working on that for you. I'll get working on that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pull on a lot of cosmic power right there. Won't lie, I won't lie.
No worries, no worries.
I want you to snort. That's always a good sign.
Yeah.
Yes. Mickael, could you tell people how they can find you on the interwebs, as they say?
Simply just Google my name. That's what I say to everyone. Mickael N'Dour. On Google search, you'll see some of my films. There may be a website sometime soon, but I like to let my work speak for myself. I don't necessarily need to be found or anything. I think I generally want people to come across my project when they are realized. And some of them are online. So some of my early films can be there. Some of them are good. Some of them are experimental. Some of them are not. But it's all interesting. So my name, Mickael N'Dour, is not 2 or 3. There's just 1. And you can see most of my films, trailers. They're all there. They're all on the YouTubes. And my channel is called Unfi. It's UN-FI on YouTube, and there's most of my short films that I deemed good enough to be watched are on there. So there you go. And then obviously Instagram, like everything else, my whole name, Mickael N'Dour. Yeah, I guess I have a presence, but again, I'm so bad at this that I need to do the whole thing. My brother is an infographist, a graphic designer in English, and he's encouraging me to create a social media presence that is stronger.
Yes,
which I will do.
Excellent.
In due times. But thank you for this. This was a very fun actually, I completely forgot it was an interview or whatever. It's a conversation.
Hey, what can I say? This is what I was aiming for. Mickael,
well, success.
You have been awesome. Thank you very much for coming on today. It's been hugely appreciated.
It's my pleasure.
I will definitely get you back on again. Next time.
I hope so.
Yes, face to face.
I hope so.
No problem.
No problem. In the same room.
Yes. Brilliant.
Okay, man.
No problem. Hey, I would like to say thank you to my friends, my life warriors out there. If you're still here watching, it is much appreciated. Please stay well, stay safe, be excellent, be cool, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. I'd like to say thank you and goodbye. Peace.
Peace.
And we are.